ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Winner of the 2024 West Virginia Broadcasters Association Excellence in Broadcasting Award for Best Talk Show.
It is Monday, June 24th. Your drive begins now right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Thanks for being a part of today's show. We're going to get right into it with your text, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We're going to hear a little bit from Tommy Gregg, manager of the Coldcats. Coldcats losing 3 of 4 in the series, but they did get the win yesterday, so we'll hear from Tommy in a few minutes. Also, a couple of promotions going on at Marshall University. We'll get into that a little bit more detail, but running backs coach Telly Lockett is now the associate head coach at Marshall, and a guy I had a pretty good conversation with a few weeks ago, secondary coach with a lot of experience, Bob Shoop, has now been elevated to assistant head coach. And so they get promotions with the football program. Shoop, when I talked to him a few months ago, great guy to talk to. I really enjoyed it. It was like the first time I had a serious conversation with him, and I like everything that he had to say. So that's a good move, I think, for Marshall today to make that decision to elevate Shoop, to elevate Lockett, and, of course, 2 different jobs. Shoop's going to be probably more on the football side of things, the actual working with the coaches, working with Huff, football game day. Whereas Lockett, I envision him, and again, I could be wrong, but I envision him more with management and administration of activities, recruiting, training, things like that. I imagine that to be a little bit more what those positions are, or it could be an amalgamation of all those things. It could be a blend, but whatever the case may be, elevation for Coach Lockett now to associate head coach. Bob Shoop's going to be the assistant head coach. We'll talk more about that with you. And, of course, the text line is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's our number to be a part of the program. We got a busy night. We got a busy next few nights, of course. NBA draft is coming up. That's going to be interesting, to say the least. And, of course, tonight, big thing happening is the Stanley Cup. Game 7's coming up tonight. It's going to be the Oilers and the Panthers, 8 o'clock on ABC. This game at one point, nobody thought was going to happen because Florida had taken a 3-0 lead in the series, and then Edmonton forced Game 7 by winning 3 straight. Florida has gone 34-16-3 at home, 52-24-6 overall. Edmonton, 49-27-6, and 28-23-2 in road games. Of course, none of that matters. This is Game 7. Game 7 for the Stanley Cup, that's what this sport's all about. You're going to enjoy this tonight. If you just watch it casually, check this one out tonight. This should be on your radar because Edmonton has not won a Stanley Cup since the 89-90 season. They did that without Wayne Gretzky. Gretzky had been traded to the LA Kings, and Edmonton won their 6th and final cup. This is going to be an explosion in Canada tonight if Edmonton can win this, because the country has not seen a team win the Stanley Cup since the Montreal Canadiens. That was the series in which they beat the LA Kings. Gretzky had got the Kings to the Stanley Cup, and Montreal won that series. And there hasn't been a team from Canada win the Stanley Cup since. Of course, this is a league full of players from America, Canada, and a lot of other European nations. So it's not like it's America, Canada, but still, Florida's trying to win its first ever Stanley Cup. Edmonton trying to win its 6th Stanley Cup. And Edmonton could be the second team ever to come back in a Stanley Cup down 3-0 since the Toronto Maple Leafs did it in 1942. I'll tell you what, should be fun to watch tonight. Edmonton and Florida, 8 o'clock on ABC. We had an interesting night in baseball yesterday. The Pirates fell to Tampa Bay 3-1. They've been pretty good as of late. We've got the game coming up tonight right here on ESPN 94.1 at AM 930 as the Pirates take on the Reds. We go on the air at 6:45, 7:10 first pitch. Guardians beat Toronto 6-5. They're taking on Baltimore tonight, 6:35 there. And, of course, the Reds, Pirates' opponent, fell to Boston yesterday 7-4. Colecats losing yesterday, Colecats winning yesterday, losing the series. We'll hear from Tommy Gregg in a few minutes on that. Of course, we're going to get your text in this hour, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. And then a little bit later, we're going to talk a little bit more about these elevations with the football team. Also, some good news for a former basketball standout for the Thundering Herd, Abby Beeman, making news today. And if we have time, we'll get into the College World Series, Game 3, and the final game coming up tonight. And there's also the countdown for EA College Football 25. I only mention this, of course, because the intern has already counted every single penny he can earn to buy this game. It's all he talks about every day. Can't wait till EA comes out with the game, Paul. I can't wait. So over the next few days, they're going to be releasing some features like top offenses and defenses. So now we need to know, will Marshall have a top offense or defense in the video game? Sights and sounds deep dive. I don't know what that means, intern, but okay, we'll get into that. Toughest places to play. Is that a ranking in the game? Apparently so. Where will Marshall rank? And of course, overall, team power rankings. Where will Marshall rank in the video game? This is, of course, the in-depth content we get when we put the intern in charge of prepping the show today. So we're going to use it. He's excited, let me tell you. He is definitely excited. You know, I don't even have a pre-order in for that game, Ben. I don't have a pre-order in. I'm sorry. I'll wait for the reviews. We'll see how it looks. Well, come on. I know you're excited. Quick time out. Let's get into the meat of the show today. We'll start with the Colecats, work our way through Marshall football, and we'll take a deep dive into all of that when we continue with this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
You know how you love Wendy's Frosty more than any other Frosty in the world? Well, it's easy because nobody else sells a Frosty, but that's not the point. What if I told you there's a triple berry Frosty? Well, surprise! I'm telling you right now, it's the next great Frosty flavor from Wendy's. It's a whole new look and taste just for the summer. New triple berry Frosty just in time for summer? It's gotta be Wendy's, even midnight or later.
Limited time only. Participating Wendy's. Hours may vary by location.
Get in the groove. Downtown Huntington's premier weekly music event is back. It's Mount West 9th Street Live, presented by New Trail, Garage Beer, Big Truck, The Beast, La Marca Prosecco, and Matua Sauvignon Blanc. This Friday, it's Bernie's RV Rental Adventures Night with Of the Dell. Music starts at 7 on the Marshall OPGYN stage. The Little Caesars Kids Zone is back, and Go-Mart Happy Hour starts at 5. Enjoy food and drinks from the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe, Sip Downtown Brasserie, and Summit Beer Station. Mark your calendar for Friday, August 2nd, when 9th Street is Dead, featuring John Ingram's Dead Center and the music of the Grateful Dead. The Thundering Herd Rally is Friday, August 16th. 9th Street Live is driven by Yes Chevy, Yes Ford every Friday night through Labor Day. 9th Street in Huntington between 3rd and 4th Avenues. Sponsored by Delta Hotels, Marshall OBGYN, Wendy's, Mountain Mindful, City of Huntington, Marshall University, Impact Media, Xfinity, and Kendrick Communications.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Monday edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Our text line is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We're going to dive into that here in a couple of minutes. Ben, our intern, he's going to be happy because we got a couple of questions actually about the video game, the EA Sports video game. He's excited. You didn't send that text in, did you, Ben? No, of course you didn't, because I have you programmed in a contact on the text line, so I know it wasn't you. Let's get into the Cold Cats. Had a rough weekend. 3 out of 4 games, they lost to the Sock Puppets, but we're going to focus on the positive and the game that happened yesterday. The Cold Cats finally got a win in this series, 8-5. They finally came to life. They went scoreless in the first inning. They scored 4 runs in the second. The Puppets would answer. They got a run in the third. The score is 4-1. Puppets would the Puppets. It makes me laugh. We're talking about a team named the Sock Puppets. They took the lead in the top of the fourth, scoring 4 runs with an RBI triple from Carter Bailey, RBI double from Garrett Garfield, sacrifice ground out from Brody Block, and an RBI single from Tyler Albright to give the Sock Puppets the 5-4 lead. And then the Cold Cats would respond in the bottom of the fourth, scoring 3 runs with an RBI double from Trey Lawrence and 2 sacrifice bunts as the Cold Cats would lead 7-5 after 4 innings. And then the bullpen would shut down Burlington in the final 3. Gomez and Collins each threw 2 shutout innings, combining for 3 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Rodriguez added to the Cats' lead with a leadoff home run in the 6th inning beyond the left field wall, ending a 2-for-2 day at the plate with his first home run of the season. And just the second, the Cats win it 8-5. So the Cold Cats improved to 7-9. Sock Puppets fall to 10-7. Sock Puppets did out-hit the Cold Cats 9-7, but it's what you do with those hits that count. Tommy Gregg, after the game, talked about how impressed he was with the way the team battled through the multitude of challenges from the game and to come out with the win.
Yeah, we just have to be road warriors, man. I like when we go on the road, everybody relaxes a little bit. We go to the park.
All right. That was cut number 2. No, actually, that's cut number 4, isn't it? We'll figure that out here in a second. We just can't seem to get these cuts in the right order, can we? All right, Tommy, talking about the upcoming series against Bristol.
Obviously, winning is important. We hated to lose. Parker Moore had to come out of the game, something with his elbow, a little tingling in his fingers. We'll get that checked out. Well, we were up, obviously, and with Parker coming out, Gomez comes in. It's hard coming in like that, We let him back in the game, but you know what? Didn't get down on ourselves. We played a little small ball there with Isaac Turner and CJ, and that's a great weapon for them. Push button to the right side with a lefty creates a lot of problems sometimes, and it did, So we ended up scoring those runs extra. Big home run by Michael Rodriguez off the lefty, too. That's huge for him and for us. So David Stitch, can struggle a little bit. I thought the umpire tightened up his zone on him a little bit, but he got through it. And that's good for him to struggle a little bit, and still get through it. So overall, good win for us.
Cold Cats off today. They'll be back in action tomorrow. Let's get to the text line, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Texter writes in, wants to know what my general thoughts on the new EA Sports college football video game releasing soon will be. Is it a positive for Marshall football? Name, image, and likeness. Yes, it's a positive. It's going to be a positive for every school. Now, there are going to be a lot of people who are not diehard college football fans in the sense that you might be, that someone else might be, say, I'm a fan of Marshall, and I'm only a fan of Marshall. And they're just going to play the game because they like video game football. There are people, they play Madden. They're not necessarily an NFL fan. They're not watching NFL like you and I are, but they're playing Madden. They're going to be those people. And there's going to be people who are playing the video game, and they're going to be playing with all kinds of random teams, and Marshall's going to be one of those teams they select. And, of course, Marshall has a fun playbook. Okay, this is a fun team to play with because if it's in the game, it's in the game, right? That's kind of the EA Sports mantra. If it's in the game, it's in the game. And so somebody's going to play as Marshall, and they're going to be exposed to Marshall. Now, is it as far as recruiting? Is it a thing? I don't think so. You have to be in the game. That's not a recruiting advantage or anything like that. Hey, we're in the video game. Yeah, we know that. You're a Division I school. You're in a video game. But how does this help with name, image, and likeness? Well, I think it helps the school as far as exposure, but it helps the players because they get to opt in. It's a blanket deal. You get to opt in. And so you're going to get a one-time fee, and then you're also going to get a copy of the game. So kids, they like playing these things. They like playing the real game, but they also like playing the video game version, so they're going to have their copy of the game. They're going to be in the game. And so, hey, here's video game Cole Pennington. You think Cole's not going to have a good time playing as Cole Pennington in the video game? Of course he is, right? And so I think the players are going to benefit from this. It's fun. It's fun to talk about. Players really like this. And we're going to talk about things that EA Sports are going to reveal. We talk about this stuff all the time with Madden. Hey, who's got the best ranking? Who's the best team? And according to EA Sports, we're going to find out tomorrow the toughest places to play. What do they think are the toughest places for teams to go in and play? So hopefully we'll get the full ranking, or we'll get an idea of what they think the toughest places are. Will Marshall make the list as a tough place to play? Will some of the other schools we're familiar with in the area make that list? I mean, what about Mountaineer Field? Is that going to be one of the toughest places to play? What about, I don't know, what about going up to Columbus? Is that one of the toughest places to play, Ohio Stadium? Now, you also have sights and sounds, what they think are some of the best sights and sounds of college football. That's going to be fun. Top offenses and defenses. And, of course, again, take this as you would anybody else's evaluation of what your team is going to look like on the offensive side and defensive side. But they're going to have their breakdown, their overview. Hey, we think that this team is really good. And you can get an idea of what they think Marshall's going to be about based off of what the offensive ratings look like, what the defensive ratings look like. Again, they're trying to do their due diligence and make it an authentic experience much as possible. But is it going to be a 1-for-1? Probably not. Is it going to be close? Yeah, it'll be close as far as what they think. And then, of course, overall, team power rankings, that's coming out. Again, they're making a big deal about this because they haven't had an opportunity to do this for, almost a decade, just about. And so we'll find out, what do the developers think, the people whose job is to give us an accurate as possible representation of college football, what do they think? And, there are players every year in the NFL that have issue with where Madden ranks them. Like, hey, I should be a little faster. Hey, I should be a little stronger. And it's fun conversation. So as far as generating conversation, talking about college football, that's going to be fun. And for a younger generation, that's going to be fun. Maybe for some older folks as well. Maybe that's fun. I suspect there are some of you that could give not a thing about this game. You don't care. It's a game. You don't care at all. And then there are going to be people who are into this. And now we're 10 years later into video games and media. And so there are going to be people who will watch Twitch streams and YouTube streams and Facebook streams, all kinds of streams of people just playing this game. That's a thing now. Maybe that wasn't such a thing several years ago, but it is now. And there are people who stream on video game services like Twitch, like YouTube, more so on Twitch than anything. Twitch is the big one. And they have a bigger following than a lot of celebrities you know. There are people who have tremendous influence that you've never heard of because you're just not part of that medium, and that's where a lot of this has gone. So I think it always helps. More is better when it comes to ways to expose people to your program. You get an opportunity to, hey, look, there's the video game representation of Marshall. I mean, your kids will enjoy it. If you don't, your kids will enjoy it. Maybe you'll get next to your kid and you'll have a good game of video game football. I always suggest go outside and play catch with the young lad, or play sports with your kid, whatever sport they might be in. Same thing, if you have a son or a daughter, go out and play sports with them. That's probably the best thing. And of course, I'm going to tell Ben, our producer, go outside and play. Don't stay inside all day playing the video game, Ben. Go outside, play football, play some pickup basketball. Maybe we can get Stevie Browning to come over. He can school us both as he talks about the Thunder Trust. Quick timeout. We'll continue on. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. This is The Drive, ESPN 94.1 AM 930.
Giovanni's Pizza. Fresh, hot, and tasty. Have it delivered right to your door. Giovanni's, the Italian place to be.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night.
Perfect. I love my job.
Oak tree?
What's up?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think he would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
They get our kids to school safely.
Okay, so walk me through how you got to this answer.
They provide critical support in the classroom.
Chicken sandwich, my favorite.
They keep students nourished so they're ready to learn.
I'm an outie.
They are there when accidents happen.
Oh, you're gonna need a Band-Aid.
And they keep our schools beautiful.
School bus drivers, custodians, nurses, paraeducators. Just a few of the education support professionals who help schools in West Virginia run smoothly every day. This is Dale Lee, president of the West Virginia Education Association. They ensure that our students have a safe ride to school, healthy meals, and a clean environment to learn. So take a moment to say thank you to the ESPs in your school.
A message from the West Virginia Education Association.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Winner of the 2024 West Virginia Broadcasters Association Excellence in Broadcasting Award for Best Talk Show.
304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's our text line to be a part of today's show here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So before we went to air, Marshall made it known that two elevations have taken place with the football program. Running back coach Telly Lockett, now going to be the associate head coach. And then safeties coach Bob Shoop, he's been added as the assistant head coach. So upgrades and titles. Lockett's been around with Marshall through the entirety of Huff's tenure. He's been the guy helping the running backs, I think, do a fantastic job. He's had a running back ranked in the top 25 nationally, believe it or not, each year. He's had a running back ranked in the top 25 nationally in rushing with the herd and a 1,000-yard rusher at each year. So he's doing something right. And, of course, you can all point to Rasheen Ali, drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, and he was part of that. Now, Rasheen is an amazing talent, so some of that's on him, but I think a lot of that's on coaching as well, getting as much potential out of him as possible. He finished nationally, 10th nationally, with over 1,400 yards. And he tied for number one in FBS in rushing touchdowns, 23. That was 2021. And 23, 1,135 yards, 15 touchdowns, and he missed one full game, and he was limited in 3 others. So that says a lot for what Coach Lockett's been able to do, and so now he's been elevated to associate head coach. And then you have a guy like Bob Shoop that comes in, and he's just been everywhere and done it. He's not one of these coaches that's been looking for a job because he needs to just find a job. This is a guy who has had success in a lot of places. You don't get to have a career as long as Shoop. Sorry, Bob, I'm not calling you old. You don't have a career that long without knowing what you're doing. He's been at Mississippi State, Tennessee, Penn State, Vanderbilt. So he's had a colorful career. He was also the defensive back coach in the USFL. Birmingham Stallions won that in 2023. So he's a guy that I think is a great elevation because he gives a little bit more of a sounding board to Coach Huff. I mean, let's be honest. At the end of the day, this is Coach Huff's ship, and he's going to sail it the way he thinks it needs to be sailed. Now, you got to run the ship. I think you have a guy like Coach Lockett who's going to help you run the ship in certain aspects, and you're going to have a guy like Shoop that's going to help you run the ship in different aspects. Hey, we need to crew the ship. I think that's where Lockett might come in a little bit more. Hey, we got to pivot here. We got to turn here. We got to steer the ship this way. I think that's where a guy like Shoop comes in. I could be completely wrong. You could completely reverse of that, or it could be a combination of both. But at the same time, this is a team that needs to perform. This is a team that has to have a performance that shows forward progress. What is forward progress? Is it championship game of the Sun Belt? Is it finishing with a winning record in conference? I mean, what's the low mark? What's the high mark? High mark is obviously going to be to get into a bowl game as the champion of the Sun Belt. That's probably the high mark. whatever bowl game you get into, you do it as the champion of the Sun Belt. Does that mean you're going to get into the postseason playoff? Yeah, that's going to be a reach for a lot of teams. So I'm not going to measure Marshall's ultimate success based on that because that's going to be difficult to do. It doesn't matter where you're at. So what's going to be the mark of success? Is it going to be winning record? Is it going to be winning record and above 500 in conference? Is it going to be East Division title? Is it going to be Sun Belt Conference title? Is it going to be winning the bowl game as well? That going to factor into this? I mean, getting to the bowl game is important, and you have to have a winning record almost to do that these days. So what's it going to be? What's going to be the high mark here for this football program? And so you've seen Marshall and you've seen this administration make some changes. You're going to have more of an air raid offense now. I mean, look at the recruiting pictures. They're showing the helicopter, kind of playing off of what Marshall has as far as assets are concerned. Look, air raid, helicopter. If it works, if kids respond to that, hey, we got helicopters here at Marshall football. Okay. What works when it comes to recruiting. But now you have a guy in Shoop that he's going to be able to have maybe more of a voice. You have a guy like Lockett is probably going to be able to have more of a voice and still be able to get done what Coach Huff wants. So these are good moves, I think. This is good. I like both coaches. I like Shoop. I like Lockett. And I think Shoop is probably the guy that can bear a lot more of the burden just because of his experience. And he's got a lot of interesting thoughts. It was fun to talk to when we talked to him a few months ago. You might have heard some of that. You can go back on our podcast and find that. That's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So there's some good stuff there you can pick up from that. And we will get your text in 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Our Kindred Communications family of stations reminds you of the need for blood donations to the Red Cross. Blood is always needed. It may save your life or the life of a loved one. This reminder is brought to you in part by
Smokin' Jay's Rib and Brew House, U.S. Route 60 at Camp Landing in Ashland. The Tri-State's best barbecue and ribeye. Boyd County Tourism and Convention Bureau. Visit, explore, enjoy Boyd County, where art meets adventure. Griffith & File Drug in Canova, caring for the area's health for over 130 years. For all your prescription needs, come to Griffith & File.
Get in the groove. Downtown Huntington's premier weekly music event is back. It's Mount West 9th Street Live, presented by New Trail, Garage Beer, Big Truck, The Beast, La Marca Prosecco, and Matua's Sauvignon Blanc. This Friday, it's Bernie's RV Rental Adventures Night with Of the Dell. Music starts at 7 on the Marshall OBGYN stage. The Little Caesars Kids Zone is back, and Go-Mart Happy Hour starts at 5. Enjoy food and drinks from the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe, Sip Downtown Brasserie, and Summit Beer Station. Mark your calendar for Friday, August 2nd, when 9th Street is Dead, featuring John Ingram's Dead Center and the music of the Grateful Dead. The Thundering Herd Rally is Friday, August 16th. 9th Street Live is driven by Yes Chevy, Yes Ford, every Friday night through Labor Day. 9th Street in Huntington, between 3rd and 4th Avenues. Sponsored by Delta Hotels, Marshall OBGYN, Wendy's, Mountain Mindful, City of Huntington, Marshall University, Impact Media, Xfinity, and Kindred Communications.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So, I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-694-1010. That's 1-800-694-1010. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. 1-800-694-1010. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back. Our Monday show continues. It feels like a Monday, doesn't it? Text lines 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Text line. This is an interesting one. I'll use it today. Who's your favorite all-time Marshall football player? Mine is Michael Payton. Ben, who's your favorite Marshall football player? You don't know that many. You're 20. How many football players do you know? Who's your favorite? Rakeem Cato, he said. Rakeem Cato. Okay. So obviously you haven't seen that much Marshall football. Michael Payton's one of my favorites. I knew him briefly at Marshall through the broadcast program. He showed up one day, and Michael Payton said, "Hey, I'm a broadcasting student." And, "Oh, really?" So I got to know him a little bit, and he was always personable during times he would come back. He was one of my favorites. I remembered him fondly, and he's definitely underrated when it comes to all-time greats Marshall quarterbacks. I would say he's one of my favorites. Of course, growing up with Marshall football, Troy Brown, Chris Parker. I'm going back a little bit here. Not too far, but going back a little bit. Tony Peterson, probably one of my favorites. John Gregory, one of my favorites. Some of those guys were definitely players that I was a big fan of, not only, as later covered Marshall, but beforehand. And I probably lean on some of those older guys. If you ask me, it was basketball, I'll give you an interesting answer. It would probably be some of the current crop, but I would say Shaq Johnson in basketball, if we just wanted to, because I know Shaq. He's a heck of a worker. Rondell Watson, probably one of my favorites, because he was always the guy coming off the bench, and he gave you everything. But as far as football is concerned, I'd be curious to hear what your favorite player is, because when you say Michael Payton, and that's a good guess, if that you're guessing maybe who mine was, I would say Michael Payton's up there among my favorites. But again, it was because I was around him. Marshall won its first ever national championship in football because of him. And later on, you have guys that came in like Chad Pennington, Byron Leftwich, Randy Moss. Everybody talks about Randy Moss being their favorite all-time Marshall football player. And for a lot of Herd fans, he is. For a lot of Herd fans, their Herd fandom began with Randy Moss. So that's fair, and that's a valid selection. I don't think there's a wrong answer. Who is your favorite Marshall football player? For a lot of people, it might be the quarterback. But do you go away from the quarterback? You go to a different position? Here's an interesting text. Texter says, "Paul, it's too hard to choose, but here's a few. Orlando Hatchett, Chris Parker, Michael Payton, Troy Brown. Hey, don't forget Larry McLeod. That's a good one. Thank you. Chad Pennington, Randy Moss for football. That's a very good list. Yeah, you can't forget Larry McLeod on that as well. And, of course, Chad's going to be up there. He's going to be on a lot of people's list." Another texter writes in and says, "Hey, Mike Bartram. Don't forget Bartram." Yeah, you can't forget Mike Bartram. Absolutely. Those are some good selections. For me, I would have a hard time choosing all those guys as well. I mean, especially a list like that. I would say that would be two of my quarterbacks. Whenever we finally do the all-time Marshall team, I look at our intern in shame right now. He says he has it done. He just hasn't presented it to me. I'm going to go over it because I know the quarterback list he's going to give to me, and I'm going to reject it. He's going to give me Pennington. He's going to give me, you say Leftwich? You're going to give me Pennington and Cato as his starter and backup. Oh, we're going to tear that apart. Texture says, hey, don't forget Carl Foder. Yeah, don't forget Carl Foder. Intern, look that up. Look up Carl Foder. You know who Carl Foder is. Texture says, my favorite player for football is Cato. Schuler combo with Cato was insane. Basketball, DeAndre Kane or Tavion Kinsey. That's good. I love Tavion. Tavion's a fun guy. I think for a lot of people, for basketball, it's going to be, depending on when you grew up, that might play a lot of that. For some, it was Skip Henderson. For some, it was John Taft. For some, it might be John Elmore. For some, it's going to be Tavion Kinsey. And let me tell you, I never at one time ever saw Tavion Kinsey walk away from a kid that wanted an autograph. So he made fans for life there. But yeah, some people might say Hassan Whiteside. He's here 1 year, had an impactful 1 year, but still, I mean, he was a good one. But football's a little harder because there are so many guys there. But Cato-Schuler combo. But Cato's Texture's favorite. All right, that's a pretty good list. That's not bad. I'll take that. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's an interesting question today. So who is your favorite Marshall football player of all time? And you can give me combos as well. We've had Cato come up a couple of times. I think Pennington is always an easy one. I think Moss is always an easy one. Troy Brown's an easy one to talk about. Like Carl Lee. No one's mentioned his name just yet. There's a guy. What about him? Carl Lee. Put him on the list. Favorite player. Not best. It can't be the best, but favorite player, I would say Carl Lee. For a lot of people, he was. For a long time. What about some of the guys that get no love? What about some of those guys? Offensive line, defensive line. What about them? We haven't heard a couple of players on those lines yet. What about Vinny Curry? Nobody's mentioned him yet. No Vinny Curry? Texture says, Paul, don't forget about Devin Rockhead Johnson. You gotta love Devin Johnson. You gotta love the nickname Rockhead. Hey, that was like an old school XFL jersey nickname right there, Rockhead. Here's one that came in. What about Billy Lyon? All right. That's a good one as well. And again, this is, we're not looking just for your best player. We're looking for your favorite player. Who's your all-time favorite, or who's some of the favorite players you've seen over the years? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. And of course, Billy, back in the days, he had an impressive run at Marshall University, a 2-time All-American, 3-time All-Southern Conference selection, heck of a defensive tackle. He was on that 1996 NCAA Division I AA National Championship team, had 91 tackles, and he had a really good career in the NFL with the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. So for a lot of football fans, he's a guy that had an impact. So yeah, you can't forget about him. Is Billy Lyon on your list, Ben? All-time Marshall? Is he on your list? You're putting the team together. Is he on your list? You're not acknowledging me. You're sitting there looking at me with that deer in a headlight look. You don't even know who Billy Lyon is. We're going to have to go over this list. We put the intern in charge of putting together the all-time Marshall team, and the all-time nemesis team, I don't know how I feel about this team because he hasn't turned it in just yet. When do I get that, by the way? I'm getting the Marshall in the next few days, he said. All right. Now, Billy Lyon better be on that team. I would think he would be on that team. I tell you what, we're going to probably look at his list, and then we're going to put together the real list. We're going to consult people on this. We're going to crowdsource your all-time team, though. We're going to put your quarterback list out, and then we're going to either add or subtract to it. So we need a starter, we need a backup, and then we need one in reserve. We got to keep 3 quarterbacks. 3 quarterbacks. And you got Rakeem Cato as the backup. No, don't drop him down to 3. Ben is telling me he'll drop him down to 3. No. Leave him on your team. We'll make that decision later. Texture says, hey, Ahmed Bradshaw, Paul. Duh. Yeah, Bradshaw. Don't forget, here's another text. Don't forget about John Wade and Aaron Ferguson. You should see Ben right now. Our intern is sitting there on his phone just Googling everybody. Oh, wait a minute. Ben just said Aaron Ferguson's on his all-time Marshall team. All right, you got one right. Paul, don't forget about Mike Barber. You can't forget about Mike Barber. Oh, you have Mike Barber on your list, Ben? Okay, Mike Barber made Ben's list. You know what we're doing here? We're giving Ben a whole bunch of names to sit there and Google because I don't know if he's got some of these names on his all-time Marshall great list. And again, the whole idea is your favorite Marshall player of all time. Who's your favorite? And we've had some good ones so far. Barber's a lot of people's favorite. That's a good one. Bartram, John Wade, Aaron Ferguson, Bradshaw. That's a good one. Billy Lyon. That's a good one. Carl Fodor, that's a good one as well. And, of course, the basic ones that everybody should know about, that's Chris Parker, that's Michael Payton, that's Troy Brown, that's Randy Moss, that's Chad Pennington. You know, some love for Orlando Hatchet came in. Who are we missing from this, though, as far as favorite Marshall player? Who are we missing from this? Do we go back a little bit here? There's got to be an age gap, I'm sure, between what people's lists look like. I mean, for me, I'm going to put Michael Payton up there every single day. Again, for a lot of Marshall fans, they began following Marshall a lot closer, maybe in the 80s, because of the renewed interest in the football program. There was signs of success. They make the move to now Jones C. Edwards Stadium in 1991. Marshall wins the national championship in 1992, then again in 1996. Makes the leap to Division I, the Mid-American Conference. Chad Pennington and Randy Moss just run roughshod over the world, and then Marshall continues to, for several years, be dominant in the Mid-American Conference before making that jump to Conference USA. And there are a lot of good players in between all of that you could list as your favorite player. For me, I would still say Michael Payton for me. It's a hard choice, though. Absolutely hard choice. And that's not to say that your favorite player isn't on the roster now. I mean, somebody's favorite player is playing right now. Somebody, their favorite player is the first player that they met. Say it's a little kid, a younger Herd fan. Their first player they met might be their favorite player from years from now. They're talking about that player. And that's why I think it's important Marshall continues to do a fan events, make sure that they're out there. And it's going to be harder to find that favorite player years to come because with the transfer portal, it's going to be hard. Could you imagine what the transfer portal would have done to some of these guys? Could you imagine? And I can't imagine it. But if the transfer portal was in place and a guy like Mike Bartram or Barber decided, hey, maybe I love it here at Marshall, but there's a different opportunity for me and I can go right away. I mean, what about Michael Payton? What if Michael decided, hey, I'm going to take a fly in the transfer portal? What about Randy Moss? If he could have shown, and maybe he decided, okay, look, I'm skipping the NFL for a year or two. He sticks around, and guess what? He's in the transfer portal. What does that do? Because remember, once upon a time, you could transfer down to Division I AA and be eligible right away. That helped a lot of players. All right, that's been fun today. I think the show picked up definitely in the second half. I appreciate everyone being a part of today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We await intern Ben Anderson's list. This is Ben Anderson's homework assignment for his internship. The all-time best Marshall team. We're going to go position by position, and then we're going to put together the all-time nemesis team, position by position. Ben is getting graded for this. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night. Again, for our producer, Ben Anderson, does a fantastic job. I'm Paul Swann. Have a great night, everyone.
Retransmitting in Glorious FM on 94.1 W227BS Huntington. This is 930 WRVC Huntington, celebrating 100 years of broadcasting.